They feared the storm, but never expected it to move in silence. Yes, you, the chosen one, the one who never needed to shout to be seen, the one whose presence alone flips the energy in the room. You're not loud, yet somehow your silence screams. It's not your words that disturb them, it's your existence. You walk in, say nothing, and suddenly they're stuttering, fidgeting, pretending to laugh. Why? Because you remind them of everything they're pretending to be. You are the calm they can't fake, the strength they can't buy, the truth they can't outrun. They're not just uncomfortable, they're unraveling. You're the mirror they never asked for, the one that shows them exactly where the masks slip. You're not just walking into rooms, you're walking into their illusions and burning them down, without even trying, and that's what drives them insane. Before we go deeper into this, make sure to like and subscribe, not just for you, but for every other chosen one still out there wondering why people react to them like this. The more you engage, the more YouTube shows this to those who need it. This message needs to reach the quiet warriors who forgot how powerful they are. Let's begin. Welcome, chosen ones. And I mean that not because someone gave you that title, but because the universe marked you with it long before anyone had a say. You didn't earn this by force. You were built different, wired for something most people can't even comprehend. That's why they act strange around you. That's why they twitch when you just breathe. You're not broken. You're a signal that disrupts their illusion of control. See, being chosen isn't about being perfect. It's about being persistent when the world wants you quiet. It's about having a peace so grounded it echoes louder than noise. Your stillness is a problem for people who rely on chaos. Your clarity? It threatens their confusion. You are the exception in a world built on pretending, and that scares the hell out of them. This isn't about jealousy anymore. It's deeper than that. It's psychological warfare. You walk into a room and they feel exposed, not because you said anything, but because you didn't need to. Your light shows up uninvited and starts peeling back their layers. Their ego wasn't ready for that. And now they're stuck between pretending they're not affected and desperately trying to reclaim a sense of power they never really had. It's like this: a flame doesn't have to chase shadows, it just has to exist. And when it does, darkness scrambles to explain itself. That's you. You are that silent flame, and they hate that you don't flinch. They hate that you don't need an audience to be powerful. Your energy disturbs their performance. And here's what the universe wants you to remember. They weren't fighting you. They were fighting the energy that chose you. And trust me, no one wins that fight. Stop doubting your light. Stop thinking you're alone. That aloneness you feel, it's just the universe clearing the noise so you can hear yourself better. That isolation, it's training. That discomfort, it's transformation. You were never meant to blend in. You were designed to stand still while everything else shakes. So let them stare, let them whisper, let them twitch. Every reaction is proof you're doing something right. You don't need to raise your voice. You are the voice. You don't need to fight for space. You are the space. And remember this: lions don't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep, but even sheep tremble when a lion walks in silent. Stay grounded, stay quiet, stay powerful. So if you've been feeling that strange pressure lately, the side eyes, the fake smiles, the sudden tension when you simply exist, that's no coincidence. It's your quiet power doing exactly what it's meant to do. Expose what's fake and disturb what's weak. Drop a 77 in the comments if you've ever watched someone glitch just because you stayed calm. That's the mark of the chosen. And if this is resonating deep in your bones, then don't scroll away, because the ones who are truly chosen can't help but feel drawn to the truth. Now take a breath, let's go even deeper. Number 1, when the light hates you but can't look away. They tried to dim your light, not knowing it was never plugged into their system. You didn't ask for attention, you didn't audition for their approval, but here they are, watching you, talking about you, twitching every time your name comes up, because no matter how much they try to pretend otherwise, they feel you, not your noise, your stillness, not your ego, your essence. That's the difference, and it's tearing them apart. They throw themselves in front of cameras, screaming for validation. You just exist, and yet somehow the spotlight chases you. That's the thing about real power. It doesn't perform, it radiates. It doesn't announce itself, it arrives. And the universe has a way of pulling the curtain back and saying, look at the one who didn't need to beg for this. That's you. They can't figure it out, and it's killing them slowly. Why does everyone notice you? Why do people lean in when you speak, or when you don't? Why does your silence echo louder than their staged applause? Because what you carry isn't man-made. It's not a brand. It's not bought. It's not filtered. It's cosmic, and it's out of their league. You walk in and shift frequencies. You breathe and break their performance. You stand still, and suddenly everything shakes. Not because you're trying to dominate, but because your energy exposes what's weak in theirs. You didn't come to steal the show. You are the show, and that truth sends their fake confidence into meltdown. Let's be brutally honest. You don't get to be chosen without being targeted. People don't attack what doesn't disturb them. They aren't reacting to you. They're reacting to what your existence reveals about them. That they're loud, but empty. Seen, but not felt. Connected, but not chosen. And here's what you need to hear right now. Stop feeling guilty for the light you didn't ask for. Stop shrinking. Stop second-guessing your gift just because others couldn't handle it. You weren't made to blend in. You weren't wired for their system. The moment you showed up, you broke their programming, and they've been glitching ever since. So when you ask, why me? Ask instead, why not me? You think the universe gave you that kind of presence, that calm chaos, that magnetic silence for nothing. You were picked by the pattern itself, the kind of chosen that makes energy rearrange itself when you move, the kind of chosen that doesn't need a crowd to make impact, the kind that walks alone but carries thunder. Still doubting yourself, still believing the whispers that say you're too much or not enough. They're only whispering because they're afraid of how loud your silence is. And if you keep listening to them, you're doing exactly what they want, dimming what was designed to disrupt. You weren't sent here to make them comfortable. You were sent to disrupt their illusions, to remind them that what's real doesn't beg, doesn't bark, doesn't boast. It just is. That's why they're sick. That's why they gossip. That's why they flinch when you walk in. They've been trying to game the system, and here you come, the living glitch that breaks all their tricks. And don't forget, they weren't fighting you. They were fighting the universe through you. That's why nothing they threw worked. That's why your silence won every battle they waged in noise. That's why they hate you and watch you in the same breath. It was never about the spotlight. It was about the fact that no matter where you stood, even in the back, the light found you. And not because you were seeking it, but because you carry what can't be hidden. You are not too much. You are not intimidating. You are just undeniable. And the universe made you that way, to disrupt, not to disappear. So stay grounded, stay silent if you must, but never doubt what that silence is doing. It's shaking things you can't even see. Number 2, you don't run on applause, and that's what terrifies them. The ones who don't beg to be seen are the ones the world can't ignore. They watch you and itch with confusion. You're not thirsty for eyes on you. You're not chasing praise like a dog waiting for a treat. And to them, that's unsettling, dangerous even, because in a world where most people are fueled by attention, you move like someone who's already full. They can't compute that. They don't understand how someone walks with confidence without an audience feeding them. They don't know what it means to wake up and feel whole before the world even blinks in your direction. You post without expecting a flood of reactions. You speak without trying to impress. You walk through life as if the world's opinion is background noise, and it is. And that's what's driving them insane. See, you threaten the entire structure they've built their worth on. They live off likes, off fake love, off shallow praise wrapped in flattery. Their confidence is built on sand, and you, chosen one, you walk in like solid ground. No wonder they're shaking. You remind them that real value doesn't beg, it just is. You don't ask, do they like me? You ask, do I respect myself? And that question alone puts them in a chokehold, because they've spent their whole lives shaping themselves into who the world wanted them to be. And here you are, unmoved, unapologetic, untouchable. You are a free agent in a world addicted to approval. They say you're arrogant. No, you're just not interested in playing the game. You don't smile for likes. You don't shrink for comfort. You don't dress yourself up for applause. That kind of independence, it's rare. And rare things make people nervous, because rare means valuable, and valuable means out of reach. You're not inaccessible, you're just not for sale. Let's call it what it is. Most of these people are spiritual beggars. They beg to be noticed, liked, validated. Their confidence rises and falls, depending on the attention they get that day, but not you. And that kind of consistency, it's a threat. Because it shows them what they're not. You're their mirror and their measure, and they hate it. They throw compliments your way just to see if you'll bite. They criticize you just to see if they can move you, but nothing works. You stay level, you stay you, and that kills them, because they realize they can't control someone who isn't desperate for approval. You don't need a fan club to know your worth. You don't measure your day by how many people clapped, and that confuses the hell out of them. Why? Because you've got something they can't download: self-possession. You've got a core they can't touch. You're rooted in something deeper. When you're chosen, you don't feed on crumbs. The universe feeds you directly, and they were never invited to that table. And don't get it twisted. They've tried. They've studied you, mimicked your tone, copied your stillness, borrowed your confidence. But it always falls flat, because what you carry can't be faked. It's not confidence. They can fake that. It's not charisma. They can copy that. It's alignment. And that's something only the chosen understand. When you're aligned with the universe, you don't need applause to feel real. You're already backed by something bigger. That's why you don't chase. That's why you don't over-explain. That's why you don't react. You move like someone who already knows where they're going, and that kind of peace, it unravels the desperate. They'll say, why don't you open up more? They'll say, you're so distant, so hard to read. No, you're just selective with your energy. They think you're being cold, when in reality, you're just not performative. You're not out here auditioning for approval. You're living in your truth. And the fact that you can live like that without needing their praise, it exposes just how hollow their validation game really is. And let's speak directly to you now. Stop feeling guilty for not needing what others are addicted to. Stop questioning if your calm makes people uncomfortable. It's supposed to. You weren't chosen to be popular. You were chosen to be powerful. There's a difference, and your power was never meant to be measured by applause. Here's the truth. The universe has already stamped you with value. The universe doesn't need to clap. It moves things on your behalf. It aligns paths, opens doors, shifts energy, all without a single audience member watching. That's how you know you're chosen. You don't need the stage to be the main character. You are the main character, even when you're off screen. They hate it because it makes their entire hustle look like a circus. While they're out there dancing for attention, you're out here glowing in silence. While they're breaking their backs to be liked, you're just being and still being noticed. But remember this, what doesn't need applause is what lasts. Trends fade, popularity dies, fake love dries up, but the chosen, they evolve, they grow, they rise in silence and shake the room without warning. So no, you don't need their validation, and that's exactly why they keep offering it in twisted forms, hoping to bait you, hoping to control you, hoping to get a reaction. Ignore it. You don't feed on crumbs anymore. You're not starving for attention. You're full on purpose. And if you've ever doubted yourself, wondering why people pull away or act strange when you're just existing, understand this. You've outgrown the need to be liked. And once you stop needing validation, you start becoming unstoppable. So let them talk, let them stare, let them misunderstand you. You were chosen for alignment, not applause. And that scares the ones still performing, because they can't perform their way into what you were born with. You don't run on validation, you run on vision. You don't crave applause, you carry alignment. You don't follow trends, you follow truth. And that, chosen one, is what makes you untouchable. Number 3, the quiet that cuts deeper than words. Some people speak without saying a thing. You, chosen one, you say everything in your silence. They don't fear your words, they fear your awareness. You don't scream truth, you radiate it. You don't need to confront people to make them feel naked. Just standing in your presence, staying quiet, looking them in the eye, that's enough to make them sweat, because you see what they're trying so desperately to hide, not with judgment, not with ego, but with piercing clarity that feels like a mirror no one asked to look into. Most people survive by pretending. They pretend to be confident when they're terrified. They pretend to be successful when they're drowning. They wrap their insecurities in false pride and throw on fake smiles like armor. And for a while, it works, until you show up, until you walk in and just breathe. And suddenly, their whole act starts falling apart. Why? Because your silence is surgical. It slices through performance like a blade. You don't ask invasive questions. You don't interrogate or pry. But your eyes are too honest, your energy too grounded, your presence too still. And in that stillness, their noise starts to unravel. You clock their fear without a word. You catch their contradictions without flinching. They feel seen in ways they've spent their entire life trying to avoid. And that, chosen one, makes you dangerous. They can't lie around you without feeling it stick to their skin. They can't fake strength around you without their mask starting to melt. And the most terrifying part, you don't even have to call them out. You just know. Your silence feels like knowing. Your calm feels like confrontation. And they're not ready for that, because people are used to hiding in plain sight. They survive in crowds that don't look too closely, in environments where everyone's too busy, too loud, too self-absorbed to notice what's real. But you see the sadness behind the laughter. You see the fear behind the control. You see the wound behind the ego. And you don't even flinch. They don't understand how. You weren't told. You weren't given the inside scoop. But you knew. Because you weren't just listening to what they said. You were reading the frequency underneath. You hear what's not spoken. You feel what others ignore. That's more than intuition. It's alignment, and alignment scares the hell out of people who are out of tune with themselves. They say you're too quiet, but what they really mean is you see too much. You don't fill the room with noise because your silence already holds weight. You don't gossip, but your energy pulls the truth out of people without trying. You've made people confess things they swore they'd never share, just because your presence felt too honest for them to keep lying. And still, you doubt yourself. Still, you wonder why people get uncomfortable, why they pull away, why they try to discredit you. Let's clear it up right now. They are not reacting to what you say. They're reacting to what they feel you know. Your silence is sacred. Your stillness is strategy. You're not passive. You're precise. You're not detached. You're deeply tuned in. You just don't waste words because you don't need to. You are proof that power doesn't need to speak to be felt. And if you've been questioning that power, don't. The universe didn't gift you that kind of insight to have you doubt it. You weren't given those eyes, that knowing, that spiritual radar for decoration. You were given it to disrupt deception, not by confrontation, but by presence. Just your awareness is enough to make liars tremble. And that's no accident. The people who fear you the most are often the ones who've built their identity on illusion. They wear their masks so tightly they forgot they were pretending. Then you walk in, quiet, steady, grounded, and suddenly the mask doesn't fit right anymore. It starts slipping, cracking, peeling under the pressure of your presence, because truth doesn't shout, it just is. And you, chosen one, are that truth in human form. Let them call you intimidating. Let them say you're too much, hard to read, unapproachable. That's just their ego gasping for air in a room it can't dominate. You don't owe them comfort. You don't owe them softness. What you owe is to stay true to the gift you carry. Because while they were learning how to fake it, you were being built to face it. Raw, honest, unfiltered. And make no mistake, you were chosen for this. The universe carved out your perception for a reason. It sharpened your silence like a blade. It aligned your senses not for chaos, but for clarity. You are the calm that convicts, the stillness that shakes foundations. And no, it's not always easy being the one who sees, but it's always worth it. Because in a world full of noise and performance, you are the reminder that nothing hides from truth forever. And when you walk in with that silence, trust me, they feel it, even if they pretend not to. So stand tall in it. Stop apologizing for your insight. Stop doubting your perception. You're not paranoid. You're tuned in. You're not cold. You're clear. You're not intimidating. They're just insecure in your light. And as long as you keep showing up in your truth, the lies will keep falling apart around you, just as they should. Number 4, you don't flex because you are the flex. When you become what others pretend to be, your silence will sound like arrogance to the insecure. You're not walking around trying to prove anything, and that's exactly what proves everything. In a world where people turn their lives into sales pitches, where self-worth is plastered across timelines and filtered into captions, you show up without a campaign, and still they feel the weight of your presence. You don't brag, but your energy speaks. You don't announce your value, but everything shifts when you enter the room. That, chosen one, is power. Real power. Quiet power. Unshakable power. They don't know what to do with someone who doesn't need attention to feel valid, who doesn't break under silence, who doesn't shrink when overlooked. You don't panic when ignored, because being seen was never your goal. Being aligned was. And when you walk in with that kind of inner stillness, they flinch. Not because you're aggressive, but because you're undeniable. You don't act powerful, you just are. That's why they can't stop watching you while pretending you're invisible. That's why they talk about your vibe, but can't put their finger on what exactly it is. They call it mystery. They call it confidence. Some even call it arrogance. But here's the truth. It's mastery. Because when you're chosen, you don't need to scream your worth. You don't need to wear labels, drop names, or list receipts. You exist, and that's enough. You move, and energy follows. Not because you're chasing clout, but because you're walking in alignment. The power you carry doesn't need packaging. It doesn't need promotion. It doesn't need permission. It just is. And let's be honest, this world doesn't know how to handle that. We're living in a culture that rewards noise, where people post every move for applause, where the loudest one in the room gets the mic, even if they're saying nothing. But here you are, quiet, focused, intentional, and still, somehow, the most powerful one in the space. It drives them insane. Because you're not performing, you're not pretending, you're not chasing attention like oxygen. You walk in your own rhythm, you let your work speak, you let your silence speak louder. That scares people who rely on performance to survive. It exposes their dependency on validation. It reminds them that all their effort to be seen means nothing next to someone who is. You don't flex the car, you don't flex the house, you don't flex the name. You flex by living. You flex by growing when no one's clapping. You flex by not needing to flex at all. They don't get how someone can be so composed under pressure, how you don't scramble for attention when you're overlooked, how you don't try to prove a point when you're doubted. That kind of stability, it's rare, it's dangerous, it's disruptive. Because it's not about being loud, it's about being solid. And if you've been made to feel like you're too quiet, too chill, or not doing enough, let me set the record straight. You are the storm in silence. You are the one they copy, but can never duplicate. You are the one who proves that true success doesn't need to be paraded. It just walks in and takes up space. You're not bothered by comparison because you know your path is unique. You're not triggered by competition because you don't see any. You're not distracted by noise because you're locked into purpose. And when someone lives like that, rooted, calm, powerful, it shakes the fragile egos around them. So let them whisper, let them misunderstand your calm, let them throw shade because you don't broadcast every win. Their confusion is just proof that your power is real, because mastery never screams, real ones never announce, and the chosen never chase. You've already become what they're trying to pretend to be. You are the blueprint. You are the reminder that what is built right doesn't need to be bragged about. So stop apologizing for your peace. Stop doubting your pace. Stop questioning your quiet grind just because the world praises performance. Your silence is not a flaw, it's a flex. Your calm is not passivity, it's precision. Your restraint is not weakness, it's control. You are the storm that doesn't need thunder, the lion that doesn't need to roar, the proof that real strength is stillness. And that's why they talk, that's why they stare, that's why they're uncomfortable. Because in a world starving for attention, you've become the one they can't stop looking at, even when you say nothing at all. You are the flex, the proof, the presence. Remember that. Number 5, your peace is a mirror, and they can't stand their own reflection. They don't want your peace, they want to break it just to feel normal in their dysfunction. You don't raise your voice, you don't match their chaos, you don't react the way they expect, and that, chosen one, is your power. But it's also why they can't stand you. Not because you've wronged them, not because you're hostile, but because your peace is exposing just how noisy they are inside. You're not trying to do it, you're just being, and that's the problem. You've mastered the art of self-control. You feel things deeply, but you don't let emotions control your actions. And in a world full of people who fly off the handle, who live in cycles of drama, triggers, and emotional impulsiveness, your stillness feels like a weapon, a quiet, undeniable kind of strength they don't know how to confront. So they poke, they produce, they provoke. Why? Because they're hoping to catch a crack in your armor. They're hoping you're faking it like they are. They want to believe you're just as chaotic, just better at hiding it. But when they push and you still don't break, that's when the fear sets in. That's when they start to resent you, because you've shown them something they don't want to face. You've built what they can't fake, real peace. Let's be clear. Most people are not used to being around stability. They've built their lives around reaction, dysfunction, blame, and escape. Chaos is their normal. So when you walk in with calmness in your soul and clarity in your eyes, they feel disoriented, like standing still on a moving train. They're not used to it, and they want to shake you to stop feeling so shaken by you. But here's the truth they'll never say out loud. You remind them of what they've avoided healing. You become the mirror that reflects the emotional clutter they've spent years ignoring. And mirrors don't lie. That's why they try to crack the reflection, not because you're broken, but because they are. They confuse your calm with coldness, your patience with weakness, your emotional discipline with apathy. But they couldn't be more wrong. You don't respond to chaos because you understand its cost. You don't swing every time someone throws shade because you know the price of misplaced energy. That's not softness, that's mastery. And let's be honest, they're not really mad at you. They're mad at how powerless they feel in your presence. You, chosen one, are proof that it's possible to feel deeply and still respond wisely. You've mastered storms without showing your thunder. You've felt anger without burning the room down. You've held your peace while others drowned in their noise. And they hate that. They think if they provoke you enough, you'll snap. They want to see you break, because if you do, it validates their chaos. It tells them that no one is really as centered as they seem, that everyone's just one trigger away from collapse. But when you hold your ground, even through disrespect, projection, slander, they see something they can't explain. Unshakable alignment. That's why they call you too calm, detached, or cold. But what they're really saying is, I don't know how to survive in peace. You've built a life around presence, reflection, and restraint. They've built one around reaction, impulse, and validation. You are the walking contradiction to their lifestyle, and contradictions are uncomfortable. So what do? They try to label you, dismiss you, shake you, but no matter what they do, your calm remains, and that drives them up the wall, because it proves the one thing they fear most. Peace is possible, but they chose chaos instead. And here's the raw truth. Chosen one, your peace is earned. You weren't born with it. You bled for it. You learned it the hard way, through betrayal, through loss, through silence, through pain. You've been where they are. The only difference? You did the inner work. They didn't. And now that you've reached a level they can't fake or force, they want to drag you back into the mess you escaped from. Don't let them. Stop explaining your silence. Stop softening your stillness. Stop making excuses for why you won't react like them. You've mastered the one thing most people never do, the ability to sit with yourself and not self-destruct. That's not weakness. That's divine strength. So let them flail, let them project, let them spiral. Your job is not to react, it's to remain. Because every time you hold your peace, you show them what's possible. You shake their foundation not with rage, but with restraint. Not with noise, but with noble silence. And if they can't handle that, That's not your burden. That's their shadow screaming at your light. Because at the end of the day, the most dangerous energy in a chaotic world is a soul that cannot be moved by noise. And that, chosen one, is who you are. Unbothered, unshaken, unmoved. Keep your peace. It's your power. Number 6. You don't compete because you're too busy creating what they can't imagine. While they race for the crown, you're building the throne they'll beg to sit on. You don't play their game. Never have. Never will. Because when you're chosen, you don't waste time chasing spots in rooms you were born to redesign. Let them fight over attention. Let them scrap for titles, for crumbs of recognition. You've got bigger plans. You're building entire realities while they're still performing for applause. You're not in their race. You're not even on the same map. That's why they can't figure you out. Why they keep watching your moves, hoping to find your strategy, but failing every single time. Because you're not predictable. You're not reactive. You're not trying to win something that was never designed to fit your power in the first place. They compete. You create. That's what sets you apart. Their energy is scattered, focused on being seen, being praised, being liked. But yours, it's focused on building, growing, becoming. While they obsess over who's on top, you're busy creating something so powerful that it redefines what top even means. See, most people need to win to feel valuable. You don't. You know your value isn't measured by comparison. You know it's not about who's louder, faster, flashier. It's about who stays consistent when the crowd is gone, who keeps building in the dark, who keeps growing in silence, who stays grounded when everything around them is performative noise. That's you, the creator, the force, the anomaly. They want to pull you into their mess, into their drama, into their competition, but you don't bite. Because to compete, you'd have to see them as equals, and you don't. Not from arrogance, but from clarity. You're not driven by ego, you're driven by vision, and your vision is too massive, too sacred to be distracted by petty games. They think you're passive, they think you're disengaged. No, you're just unbothered, you're focused, you're too tapped in to be dragged down. You don't need to react because your presence already dominates. You don't overpower because you outlast, outthink, outgrow. That's the long game, and you're built for it. So let them talk, let them throw shade, let them compete with shadows, because they're not really competing with you. They're competing for your attention, and you've evolved past the need to respond. You've learned that a powerful soul doesn't chase noise. It commands silence. They don't understand how you keep rising when you're not scrambling, how you win without playing dirty, how you lead without stepping on others. That's because you're moving with purpose, not ego. And when someone is aligned with purpose, there's no need to compare. You're not here to impress, you're here to impact. And impact isn't loud, it's lasting. Here's the hard truth they don't want to accept. They'll never catch up to someone who isn't chasing anything. They'll never beat someone who's not even in the ring. While they're measuring success in likes, trophies, and applause, you're measuring success in freedom, peace, and legacy. That's why your silence scares them more than their noise can scare you, because they don't know what you're planning. They don't know what you're building. All they know is that you keep rising and they can't stop watching. But let's address you now, chosen one. If you've ever felt guilty for not caring about the game, if you've ever been told you lack ambition because you don't compete the way they do, understand this. What you're building is too rare to be understood by those chasing trends. Your ambition is just on a different frequency, and most people can't hear that kind of music. So don't shrink to fit their idea of success. Don't engage in battles that don't deserve your energy. Don't waste your fire proving you can burn. You've already lit the path others are now trying to follow. You don't need the crown. You are the kingdom. Let them run in circles. You're building the map. Let them crave attention. You're creating legacy. Let them compete. You're constructing a reality they'll try to mimic, but never match. You're not part of the noise. You're the blueprint. You're not chasing glory. You are the force that redefines it. Stay above the noise. Stay building, because what you're creating will outlast everything they're fighting for. Number 7, your resilience is their reminder, and it's burning them up inside. You survived what they use as excuses, and that makes you the threat they'll never admit. You didn't cry for attention. You didn't build a brand off your brokenness. You bled in silence, healed in the dark, and came back stronger without making a scene. And now that you've risen, they don't know what to do with you, because your strength isn't just strength. It's a mirror, one they can't avoid, one that exposes the fact that they could have risen too, but didn't. That's what shames them. That's what burns them. You didn't have more help. You didn't have less pain. You had less quit. And that's what separates you. Not luck, not privilege. Resilience. Relentless, silent, deadly resilience. You've endured storms that would have left them in pieces. Pressure that would have broken bones, bent will, crushed identity. But not only did you survive, you transformed. You took the hits and alchemized them. You didn't sit in suffering. You let it forge you. And now your glow hits differently because it came from fire. And here's the thing, they know that. They watched you go through things that should have taken you out. They saw the moments when you were isolated, underestimated, overlooked. They expected you to break. Some of them wanted you to, but you didn't. You rose, not loud, not flashy, just real, just unshakable, just undeniable. And that kind of quiet comeback, it makes noise in places they never expected. You don't complain, you don't blame, you don't broadcast your wounds for sympathy. You moved through it all with grit in your spine and fire in your soul. That offends them. Why? Because you are proof that excuses are optional, that growth is available to anyone, but only a few are willing to earn it. You didn't just survive trauma, you leveled up from it. You didn't just take the pain, you turned it into a platform. You didn't wait for someone to rescue you, you rescued yourself. And now your strength is making their weakness feel like a decision. You are the proof that healing is a choice. And for people addicted to their story of struggle, that is threatening. They can't weaponize your past against you because you already wore it as armor. They can't shame you for what you've been through because you already turned it into power. They can't outsuffer you, outlast you, or outgrow you because you kept going when no one was clapping, and that makes you the most dangerous person in the room. They post quotes about healing. You embodied it. They talk about strength. You demonstrated it. They romanticize struggle. You transcended it. And they resent you for that, because every excuse they've held onto, every reason why they can't, won't, or aren't ready, crumbles when you walk in. You didn't get special treatment. You got real. You did the work when no one was watching. You made peace with pain while they were still blaming the world. And now your existence alone confronts their comfort zones. But don't ever downplay that. Don't shrink your power just to keep their guilt quiet. Don't dim your resilience to fit into circles built on weakness. Your strength isn't arrogance, it's evidence. It's the receipt of everything you've endured and everything you refused to let destroy you. So wear your scars like steel. Walk like someone who's fought wars in silence. Move like someone who's died and come back with vision, because that's who you are. You weren't chosen because you were flawless. You were chosen because you wouldn't fold. You weren't selected for ease. You were selected for endurance. You didn't just survive the pain, you commanded it to build you. And now that you've emerged unshaken, they'll act like you didn't suffer, like it came easy, like you got lucky. That's how the weak talk when they can't comprehend strength without struggle porn. But you know the truth. And so do they. You earned every inch of peace. You fought for every ounce of progress. And now, your existence is a walking contradiction to everything they say is too hard, too much, or not fair. You are the reason someone's excuses don't hold weight anymore. So keep rising. Keep walking like someone who buried the version of themselves they used to cry for. Keep growing in silence while they crumble in volume. Because in a world full of talkers, you are the proof that real power is forged, not found. And that's what makes you unstoppable. That's what makes you chosen. Number 8. They can't decode what was never programmed for their system. You're not hard to understand, you're just impossible to control, and that terrifies them. You walk into a room and they instantly start analyzing, trying to pin you down, trying to box you in, but they can't, because you don't move for attention, you move with intention. You're not broadcasting your every thought, emotion, or strategy like most people. You're not desperate to be known. You're content in your mystery, and that drives them insane. They watch you like you're some kind of puzzle. They lean in, waiting for a glitch, a slip, a crack in the calm, but none comes. And that unreadable energy, that still composed unpredictability, it makes them itch. Because people fear what they can't figure out. They fear what they can't control. You're not unreadable because you're guarded. You're unreadable because you're too expansive for their expectations, too layered to fit inside the neat little categories they use to feel safe. One moment, you're calm and reserved. The next, your presence flips the room. You adapt, but you don't conform. You evolve, but never for applause. You shift, but only toward growth, not attention. They don't know how to place someone who doesn't give away their power just to feel seen. And here's the part they'll never say aloud. They want to affect you, but they can't. They don't know whether you're impressed, bored, challenged, or simply indifferent. They try jokes. You don't fake laugh. They try flexing. You don't blink. They try to insult you, fish for a reaction, but all they get is that same steady energy, that same calm knowing that says, I see through this. That kind of control. It's rare. It's threatening. They're used to people giving themselves away easily, reacting, oversharing, trying to prove something. But you're surgical with your energy. You don't perform for approval. You don't compete for attention. You don't explain what doesn't need to be explained. And that mystery, they call it distant. They call it weird. They say, I just can't figure you out. But what they really mean is, I can't control you. And that chosen one is your gift. You weren't meant to be simple. You weren't meant to be predictable. You weren't designed to be easily read or understood. You were built to be multidimensional, deeply intuitive, fluid like water, sharp like glass. That's why they're uncomfortable. That's why they try to label you. Because labels create the illusion of control. And you're out here shattering every label they try to stick on you. Let them study, let them analyze, let them obsess. You were never meant to fit their mental blueprint. They don't get to define what they didn't design. You weren't made for categories. You were made to rewrite the system. Your silence, that's strategy. Your mystery, that's protection. Your unpredictability, that's power. Because people can't sabotage what they can't predict. They can't attack what they can't identify, and they can't box in what was never built with edges. So if you've ever felt the pressure to explain yourself more, to soften your mystery, to fit into their frame, don't. That discomfort they feel around you, that's not your problem. That's their programming malfunctioning in the presence of authenticity. That's their system trying and failing to process something real. You're not here to be figured out. You're here to be felt. Your energy speaks before your mouth does. Your silence unsettles because it holds weight. Your presence lingers in rooms long after you've left, not because you did anything loud, but because you exist on a frequency they can't decode. And that's why they obsess. That's why they study you. That's why some hate you without even knowing why. Because you're not loud, but you're impossible to ignore. You're not chasing influence, but you radiate impact. You're not trying to be a mystery, you just are. They'll keep trying to figure you out. They'll fail, because you weren't made for shallow minds. You weren't made to be explained. You were made to be experienced, and only the ones with depth will ever truly feel you. Everyone else, let them guess. So now you see it, why they react the way they do, why your silence shakes, why your presence speaks louder than noise ever could. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out without trying. Your power isn't just seen, it's felt, and that's what makes you chosen. If this message hit home, like, subscribe, and drop the number 77 in the comments if you're done dimming your light. Share this with someone whose quiet power needs to be reminded of what they carry. Let this message reach every chosen one still doubting their force.